Happy Monday. So last week's challenge was to do an inventory, really asking yourself what it is that you're afraid of, and then just acknowledging that. Do an inventory of it. So this was inspired by my time in the North Woods, where I got up close and personal with some of my long-standing fears. So here I am back in my home office, living to tell about it, and I am reflecting on that experience and just how powerful that really was. I wanted to share with you this week the risk assessment that I performed on my fears. I know that makes me sound pretty project management nerdy, but what I found was that the risk assessments that I do on my projects were actually really highly effective on addressing my fears. So I want to share that technique with you today and see if that might also help you address some of your fears. So before we talk about this approach, there's the obvious fear that keeps us safe from danger, and that's obviously not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the irrational fear that holds us back. The what ifs scenarios, right? Not the bear is chasing me down the road scenario. That's imminent danger fear. We're talking about the irrational fear. So as we take a look at that fear, the first thing we want to do is ask the question of, what is the worst that could possibly happen here? And when you're doing this exercise, make sure you are in a safe and comfortable environment, someplace where you are feeling comfortable, and that you're calm. Take a deep breath and then ask that question. Take a look at that fear and ask, what is the worst possible thing that could happen if that fear came true? Second, you're going to look at the odds of that actually happening. What are the odds of that thing that you're afraid of actually happening and the worst case scenario happening? So what are the odds of that? Then third, if the odds are high, and you get to decide what high is, then you're going to take action that is going to limit the risk of it happening or limit the impact, right? So only if there's a high chance of that risk happening and the worst case scenario happening do we need to take action on it. Otherwise, more than likely, the chance of your worst case scenario happening are very low. And so just acknowledging that will help us to release it. So performing a risk assessment on our fears really allows us to take a step back gives us a more pragmatic approach to looking at that irrational fear. Maybe it isn't irrational. Maybe there is action that needs to be taken to reduce that impact or risk. But more than likely there's not. And going through this exercise will help you to determine the difference. So if you took last week's challenge, or if you didn't, right now, do that inventory of what it is you're afraid of. And if you're up for it, pick one of those fears. I would highly recommend that you pick one that feels more approachable. So we're not looking at our deepest, darkest fear here. That probably requires a little more support than I can give you in this moment. But maybe you tackle one or two of your more approachable fears, something that is kind of annoying and something you'd like to tackle. So take a look at that and determine today to ask yourself, what is the worst that could happen if this fear came true? What are the actual odds of that happening? And finally, if the odds are high, what action can be taken to reduce impact and likelihood? Or if the odds are low, I'm going to let that go. So, this was a highly powerful exercise for me. I hope it is for you as well. Good luck. Have a great week.